You know that specific feeling when you're watching a movie and your brain is essentially split in two?
Mm-hmm.
One half is screaming, "Call the police, this is a felony," and the other half is like humming along to the music thinking, "Oh, look at them fall in love."
Yes.
It's that cognitive dissonance where you aren't sure if you're supposed to be terrified or charmed.
Is a very specific type of cinematic gaslighting, isn't it?
Exactly. And today, we are diving into the absolute masterclass of that manipulation.
This is a big one.
We are looking at Pedro Almodóvar's 1989 explosion of color and controversy, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, or Átame in the original Spanish.
This is a film that, I mean, it just defies categorization. It is vibrant, it is hilarious, it is deeply disturbing, and it is arguably the reason the American film rating system looks the way it does today.
That is the part that really hooked me when I was prepping for this. We're going to talk about the plot, obviously, because it is wild.
It's beyond wild.
But the backstory here is just as dramatic. I mean, we are talking about a movie that broke the MPAA. It forced the industry to invent the NC-17 rating.
It did. It really did. It sits right at the intersection of high art, romantic comedy, horror, and, a massive legal battle over censorship.
So here is our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We have the production history, we have the legal arguments from the lawsuit against the Motion Picture Association of America, and we have the critical analysis from, well, both sides of the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to figure out how a story about a violent abduction became a fairy tale, and we're going to ask the hard question. Is this movie a romance, or is it just Stockholm Syndrome with better lighting?
That is the fundamental question. It really is. And to answer it, you have to start with the sheer audacity of the premise. I mean, Almodóvar isn't hiding the ball here. He tells you exactly what this is from the opening frames.
Right. Let's set the stage. We have our protagonist, Ricky. And honestly, protagonist feels like a generous word given what he does, but that is how the film frames him.
It is. Ricky is played by Antonio Banderas, who was just, 23 years old at the time?
So young.
And the context of his character is absolutely crucial to understanding why the movie doesn't just feel like a slasher film. Ricky is an orphan. He has spent his entire life in institutions. We meet him on the day he's being released from a psychiatric hospital.
And the doctors explicitly tell him he is cured. But this is where I get stuck. What does cured even mean to a guy who has literally never lived in the real world?
Well, that's the key insight into his psychology, isn't it? Ricky's logic isn't emotional. It is. It's binary. It is institutional.
Okay.
In a hospital or an orphanage, you follow rules, A, B, and C, and you get reward D. He believes society works the same way. He wants to be a normal person, and to him, normal has a very specific, very rigid definition.
A job, a wife, and children.
Exactly. A job, a wife, and children.
He treats it like a grocery list. Okay, I have the pants, now I need the wife.
Exactly. It's structural. He needs to acquire these things to validate his existence as a person in the outside world.
But he doesn't just want a wife. He isn't, looking for a blind date. He is fixated on one person, Marina Osorio.
Right. Marina, played by the amazing Victoria Abril. She is an actress, a former porn star, and she's currently filming a horror movie. And this is a major plot point later. She is also a recovering heroin addict.
And their history is, let's call it asymmetrical.
That is a very polite way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
Ricky escaped the asylum once before, just briefly. They had a one-night stand.
Right.
To Marina, it was likely a blur. I mean, she was deep in her addiction at the time, probably high, and she doesn't even remember his name.
Of course not.
But to Ricky, that night was the imprint. That was destiny. That was everything.
So he gets out of the asylum. He has 50,000 pesetas in his pocket, which we should clarify for you is not a lot of money. It's pocket change.
Barely anything.
And he goes straight to the film studio where she is working.
And this leads to the meet cute, if you can even call it that.
Yeah.
It's very strange. He tried to get her attention. And how does he do it? He has a handstand.
A literal handstand.
A literal handstand. Right there on the set.
See, that is such a weird detail. Why include that? What is that supposed to tell us?
I think it signals to the audience that this guy isn't a hardened criminal or a sexual predator in the traditional sense. He's an arrested adolescent.
Okay.
He is showing off like a little boy on a playground. It's pathetic, it's childish, and it kind of disarms you as a viewer.
But Marina understandably just ignores him. She dismisses him as a fan or a stalker.
Which, to be fair, he is.
He is. And this is where the switch flips. Because in a normal rom-com, this is the part where the guy sends flowers or maybe stands outside with a boombox. Ricky decides to break into her apartment.
And this is why the film is so polarizing. The break-in is not played for laughs. It is violent.
Yeah.
She forces his way in. She screams. And to silence her, he headbutts her.
That headbutt is so visceral. I remember watching it and thinking, okay, we are in a thriller now. This is a villain.
It creates an immediate shock. He knocks the wind out of her and out of the audience. He tapes her mouth. He ties her to the bed with ropes.
And this is the part that is so uniquely Almodóvar. He sits down and explains his plan calmly, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. He says, I captured you so you can get to know me, fall in love, and marry me.
It's terrifying because he is so sincere. He isn't doing this to hurt her. In his mind, he is providing a service.
Right.
He says, I will be a good husband. I will protect you. He views the kidnapping as a necessary logistical step.
How so?
She can't love him if she doesn't know him, and she won't get to know him if she runs away. Therefore, ropes. It's just simple logic to him.
It's a complete distortion of courtship. He's essentially saying, you just need to sit still long enough to realize I'm great. But here is where the movie really challenges me. If this were an American thriller, the next 90 minutes would be her trying to, stab him with a glass shard and escape. But that's not what happens.
No, not at all. Almodóvar throws in a complication that shifts the power dynamic entirely. Marina has a toothache.
A toothache? That seems so trivial for a hostage situation.
It sounds trivial, but it's a stroke of genius. It's a massive, agonizing toothache. And remember, she is a recovering addict on methadone.
Oh.
So over-the-counter stuff doesn't work for her. She is in physical hell.
So suddenly her kidnapper's the only person who can help her.
Precisely. Ricky has to pivot from being the captor to being the caregiver.
Right.
He has to go out into the world, which he doesn't understand, to get her pain medication. And this leads to a fascinating sequence. He goes to a pharmacy. They deny him because he has no prescription. So he has to go to the black market.
And this is where we see his moral code is just totally rewired. He finds a dealer, played by the iconic Rossi de Palma, but he refuses to pay the street price.
Because he's on a budget. He's trying to be a responsible head of household with his 50,000 pesetas. He actually lectures the drug dealer on fairness.
He's haggling.
He's haggling. He's outraged that she's price gouging him.
And then attacks her.
And then he attacks her to get the pills. Again, for him, violence is just a tool. It's utilitarian. But this has consequences. Later, the dealer spots him in the street and gets her revenge. Ricky gets jumped. He is beaten, robbed, and left unconscious.
So he stumbles back to Marina's apartment. He is bloody. He is broken. He looks like a wreck. And this is the pivot point of the entire film, right?
It is. This is the moment Marina sees him. And up until this moment, he's been the monster. But now, he's the wounded child.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
He went out to get her medicine, and he got destroyed for it.
And instead of using this moment to grab the keys and run while he's passed out, she starts cleaning his wounds.
She sterilizes his cuts with alcohol. It's an act of intimacy. Almodóvar is showing us the transition from fear to empathy.
But is that realistic? Or is that just movie magic? I mean, it feels like a very quick turn.
Well, clinically, it's the definition of Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? The psychological phenomenon where hostages develop an emotional bond with their captors as a survival strategy.
Right.
But Almodóvar frames it differently. He doesn't treat it as a pathology. He treats it as an epiphany.
Yeah.
She sees his devotion. She realizes that no one else in her life, not the director she sleeps with, not her sister, would take a beating just to get her painkillers.
And from there, the slide into romance is fast. They have sex. They plan to run away together to his hometown. But there is one scene that I think we need to analyze deeply because it's literally the title of the movie.
Yes.
He has to leave again to steal a car for their getaway. She is untied. She is free. She could walk out the door. And she says to him, tie me up.
Átame, tie me up so I won't escape.
That is such a heavy line. She is acknowledging that she wants to stay, but she doesn't trust her own instincts to run. She is consenting to the bondage.
She is outsourcing her willpower to the ropes. It's her way of committing to the relationship. She is saying, I want to be bound to you, even if it defies all logic.
And then we get the quote-unquote happy ending. Her sister Lola shows up, rescues her, but Marina confesses, I love him. They drive off to find Ricky at the ruins of his family home. The sister, who should be calling the police, accepts him. She basically adopts him into the family.
Offers him a job.
And they drive away singing Resistiré.
I will prevail. It's an anthem.
So looking at this plot, it's insane. It's a felony wrapped in a hug. But you mentioned in the pre-show notes that Almodóvar considers this a version of Beauty and the Beast.
He does. And if you strip away the modern setting, the vibrant colors, the structure is identical.
How so?
You have the Beast Ricky. He's wild. He is violent. He is isolated from society. And you have the Beauty Marina. The core myth of Beauty and the Beast is that the savagery of the male is tamed by the civilizing influence of the female.
Right, like King Kong.
Or Tarzan.
Or even Frankenstein. Wait, Frankenstein. I don't remember the monster getting the girl.
No, but think about the monster in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. He isn't evil initially. He's unformed. He lashes out because he doesn't understand the world, and everyone rejects him. Ricky is a direct descendant of that archetype.
Okay, I can see that.
And in Spanish literature specifically, there's a famous play called Life is a Dream by Calderón de la Barca.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a 17th century classic, basically the Spanish Hamlet. The protagonist, Segismundo, has been imprisoned in a tower his whole life by his father. He is described as a beast man.
Wow.
When he is finally released, he is violent and impulsive because he has no social conditioning. He has to learn to be human. Almodóvar is absolutely tapping into that cultural vein. Ricky is the modern Segismundo. He has the vitality of an animal, as Almodóvar puts it, but he needs love to become a citizen.
So Almodóvar is saying, don't look at this as a crime report, look at this as a fable.
Exactly. He calls it a romantic fairy tale.
Yeah.
And he's also playing with the tropes of American romantic comedies from the 50s.
You mean like Doris Day and Rock
Yep.
Hudson?
Yes. Think about Pillow Talk or That Touch of Mink. What is the plot of those movies? A man pursues a woman relentlessly.
Right.
She says no, he ignores her no, he tricks her, he wears her down,
Yeah.
and eventually she marries him.
And we call that romance.
We do. We call it persistence. Almodóvar is taking that exact dynamic and stripping away the polite veneer. He is saying, you like it when the guy won't take no for an answer. Okay, here's what that actually looks like. It looks like a kidnapping.
That is a very cynical take. So he's parodying the genre by taking it literally.
He is exposing the aggression inherent in the idea of winning a woman. Ricky is approaching love the way one studies for a degree. He believes love is constructed through effort and willpower. He forces it into existence.
There's also a layer of horror here that we can't ignore. Marina isn't just an actress. She is filming a horror movie inside the movie.
The Midnight Phantom. It's a Euro horror film about a masked, mutilated man who is in love with her character.
Which is a direct mirror of her reality. I mean, it's not subtle.
It's a perfect parallel. In the fake movie, she fights the monster and wins. In her real life, she tames the monster. There's a great line from the director character in the film, Maximo. He says, sometimes love stories and horror stories are indistinguishable.
That feels like the thesis statement of the entire film.
It absolutely is. Almodóvar wants us to feel that confusion. You see posters for Invasion of the Body Snatchers in the background. He is constantly reminding us of monsters while we are watching a love scene.
Let's talk about the ropes again, because the movie is called Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. You'd assume this is a film about BDSM.
And Almodóvar is very, very insistent that it is not.
How can it not be? She is literally tied to a bed.
He argues that there is no erotic charge to the ropes themselves in the context of the film. They aren't getting sexual pleasure from the bondage. For Almodóvar, the ropes are a metaphor for the knots of a relationship.
So, sweeter human bondage, that kind of thing.
Right. When you marry someone, you are tied down. You are bound to them. Ricky just makes the metaphor literal. He ties her down physically because he wants to be tied to her emotionally.
I want to pivot to the production because the chemistry between Banderas and Abril is just electric. It's undeniable. But Victoria Abril wasn't supposed to be in this movie, was she?
No. And this is a bit of tragic history for Almodóvar fans. For the entire 1980s, his muse was Carmen Maura. She was the star of Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, Law of Desire, What Have I Done to Deserve This? They were the dynamic duo of Spanish cinema.
So why wasn't she Marina? What happened?
Almodóvar felt she was too old.
Ouch.
Maura was 44 at the time. The role of Marina required a certain starlet energy, someone who could plausibly be the object of a 23-year-old's naive obsession.
Wow.
Almodóvar cast Victoria Abril instead, and it caused a massive rift. Maura and Almodóvar didn't speak for years after this. It was a huge falling out.
That is just the brutal reality of the industry. But looking at the film, Victoria Abril brings a toughness that I think is essential. She doesn't play it like a victim. She plays it like a survivor.
She does. She brings a gritty realism that contrasts perfectly with Banderas' dreamy idealism. And she had to replace a legend, which is a high-pressure gig.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of legends, we have to talk about the music. Who scores this quirky, colorful Spanish comedy? and no Morricone. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Ennio Morricone.
Are you serious?
The very same. The Mission, Cinema Paradiso. The maestro himself.
That seems like overkill for a comedy. Why him?
It was a huge get. It showed Almodóvar's status was rising. But here's the kicker. Almodóvar, he didn't like the score.
He hired the greatest living composer and said, meh.
Essentially. Almodóvar thought the music sounded too conventional.
What does that even mean?
He thought it sounded like Morricone's score for the Harrison Ford movie Frantic, which had come out recently.
Yeah.
He wanted something more uniquely Spanish or more bizarre, so he actually only used about half the music Morricone wrote for the film.
That takes some serious ego.
Okay.
Or, I guess, artistic confidence.
It's an auteur knowing exactly what he wants. But what remains in the film works beautifully because it is a thriller score.
Right.
It sounds like Bernard Herrmann's Psycho. It keeps the tension high. Even when they're having a tender moment, the music is telling you, danger, danger.
Mm-hmm.
It reinforces that idea that love and horror are neighbors.
And then you contrast that with the pop music, the song Resistiré.
By Duo Dinamico. It's an upbeat, defiant 80s pop anthem. I will resist, I will prevail. It grounds the movie in the movida madrileña.
We should define that term for the listeners. Movida madrileña.
Right. It was the countercultural movement in Madrid that just exploded after the death of the dictator Francisco Franco in 1975.
Oh, hey.
After decades of fascism and repression, suddenly Spain exploded with punk rock, drugs, sexual freedom, art. It was a cultural revolution. And Almodóvar was the prince of that movement. This film captures that spirit. The idea that we have survived the darkness of the past, and now we are going to live no matter how messy it gets.
Okay, we need to get into the big fight, the battle of the ratings. Because while Spain loved this movie, it had over 1 million viewers there, the United States had a complete meltdown.
A total, absolute meltdown. You have to remember the context of 1990 in America. The reading system was G, PG, PG-13, R, and X.
And X didn't mean cool indie film. X meant porn.
Exactly. X was synonymous with Deep Throat or peep shows in Times Square. If your movie was rated X, newspapers wouldn't run your ads. TV stations wouldn't air your trailers. Blockbuster wouldn't stock your tape. It was commercial suicide for a narrative film.
And the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, watched Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, and slapped it with an X rating.
They did. And Miramax, the distributor led by Harvey Weinstein at the time, was furious. They looked at the film and said, this isn't porn. This is art. Yes, it has sex, but it's a narrative film by a world-renowned director.
What specifically triggered the X? Was it the violence? The headbutt?
No, and that's the incredible irony. The violence, the headbutt, the bleeding, the drugs, that was fine.
Of course.
The MPAA had no problem with that. It was the sex. Specifically, a lengthy love scene and one very, very infamous scene involving a bathtub.
The scuba diver.
The scuba diver.
Explain this for those who haven't seen it because it sounds like a hallucination.
Okay, so Marina is relaxing in a bathtub. She has a small wind-up toy, a little scuba diver that kicks its legs. And she allows the toy to swim, let's say, into a very private area.
It's a scene of female masturbation using a wind-up toy.
Correct. It is quirky, it is funny, it is completely character-driven, and it is explicit. And the MPAA just lost their minds. They said, that is X-rated content, period.
So Miramax sued them.
They took him to the Supreme Court of New York. This wasn't just a business negotiation. They turned it into a First Amendment issue. They hired the famed civil rights lawyer, William Kunstler.
That is a power move. What was their legal argument? That the scuba diver was protected artistic expression?
Their argument was about hypocrisy and discrimination. They argued that the rating system was discriminatory against female pleasure and sex in general, while being incredibly permissive of violence.
Ah, I see.
They pointed out that you could show a woman being murdered, raped, or mutilated in an R-rated movie, no problem. But if you showed a woman giving herself pleasure, it was immediately X-rated. They argued the MPAA was prioritizing violence over sexuality.
That is a very strong argument.
Yeah.
Did they win?
Legally, no. The judge ruled that the MPAA is a private organization and has the right to express its opinion on films. Miramax lost the case.
So the movie stayed X?
No, Miramax released it unrated, which is a risky move but better than X. But here is the real victory. The public outcry was so loud, and the argument Miramax made was so damaging to the MPAA's reputation that the MPAA completely capitulated.
They changed the system.
Within months. In September 1990, they introduced a brand new rating. NC-17, no children under 17 admitted.
So the distinction was finally made. This is for adults, but it isn't pornography.
Exactly. Tie Me Up, tie me down, is the reason we have the NC-17 rating today. It was the battering ram that broke down the door. Along with a film called Henry and June, it forced the industry to distinguish between art films with adult content and hardcore pornography.
That is a massive, massive legacy for a strange little romantic comedy about a kidnapper.
It changed the distribution landscape for foreign films and independent cinema in America forever.
So, stripping away the legal battle, how was the movie actually received? You mentioned Spain loved it. What about the rest of the world?
It was a complete Rorschach test. In Germany, it was a disaster. At the Berlin Film Festival, the projector broke during the screening, which is a bad omen.
Never a good sign.
And then the German press just attacked Almodóvar. They grilled him about his sexuality, about drug use, about being Spanish. They didn't see the humor. They just saw the perversion. They viewed it through a very literal, very serious lens.
And the UK?
British critics were mostly dismissive. One famously called it banal and humorless. They just couldn't get past the premise. They saw it as a cheap thriller trying to be artsy.
Which brings us to the feminist critique. Because we can't do a deep dive on this movie without addressing the obvious elephant in the room. This is a movie where a woman learns to love her abuser.
And that critique is entirely valid and very powerful. Feminist groups and women's advocacy groups were understandably outraged. They argued that the film creates a dangerous fantasy.
Which is what, exactly?
That if a man is just violent enough and persistent enough, the woman will eventually come around.
It validates the stalker. It says, don't take no for an answer, just tie her up and wait.
It does. It suggests that no just means tie me up until I say yes. Modern audiences, definitely struggle with the ick factor. It's hard to root for Ricky when you look at his actions on paper.
Does Almodóvar defend this? Or does he just say, it's a movie, get over it?
He leans on the fable defense we talked about earlier, that Ricky is an animal, not a man. But he also offers a more cynical and perhaps more interesting defense. He argues that the film is a parody of marriage itself.
Unpack that for me.
Meaning that traditional marriage is a form of Stockholm syndrome. You take two people, you tie them together, legally, socially, and financially, and you say, you can't leave. And because you can't leave, you learn to love each other to survive the confinement.
Wow. So Ricky is just speeding up the process.
Exactly. Almodóvar is suggesting that all long-term relationships require a bit of this forced adaptation. We all, in a way, fall in love with our captors eventually, whether the ropes are made of hemp or a 30-year mortgage.
That is incredibly bleak.
It is bleak. But it's also wrapped in bright colors and pop music and humor.
And that's the paradox. The movie ends with them singing and driving into the sunset. It feels joyful.
That is the magic of Almodóvar. He takes trashy pulp elements, kidnapping, addiction, B-movies, and weaves them into something incredibly complex and somehow beautiful. They are happy in their dysfunction.
So what is the final takeaway here? If we are trying to distill this for the listener, what should they leave this deep dive with?
I think the takeaway is about the blurred lines. The film forces us to look at where we draw the line between passion and possession, between romance and horror, and between art and pornography. It doesn't give us clear answers, but it forces us to have the debate.
And the context matters so much. The fact that this movie had to fight for its right to exist in U.S. theaters is part of the text now. You can't separate the art from the fight.
Absolutely. You can't watch it without thinking about the censorship battle and what that says about American culture versus Spanish culture at that specific moment in time.
I want to leave the listener with a final provocative thought. We mentioned the happy ending. They are driving away singing, I will prevail, but prevail against what?
The world. Or each other.
Or maybe, just maybe, we love the Beauty and the Beast story, not because it's romantic, but because it's a survival guide. We want to believe that if we just love the monster enough, if we're just patient enough, he will stop being a monster.
Which is the most dangerous fantasy of all.
Exactly. On that cheerful note, don't kidnap people and don't sue the MPAA unless you have a really, really good lawyer. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.